whatever app you're watching me on. I've just added my Twitch to my profile. You can follow me over at Twitch. I don't really game that much, but this is going to be a quick video because I'm getting a headache again, and I wanted to get this done as quickly as I can because it's going to quickly take over my rest of my evening, and I want to get this thought out of my brain. If you would like to subscribe to my channel, please visit me on haps.tv. You can follow me over there, and whenever I go live, you'll get notified. You can also follow me on any of my social medias. It will be linked below. If you're on Haps, I do not know you're here because I can't see you. You will have to say hello. And if you don't know what haps.tv is, it's a wonderful new chat place that other followers of Periscope are leaving and going to, since Periscope is going to be no more. If you'd like to get 100 free coins, please let me know. You can join and get 100 free coins if you use my invite link, and I would be glad to do that. You can use your coins to support local Hapsers, and that's the way you help out people here on Haps. I don't ask you to give them to me because I don't really care for, hey Tim, welcome back. I don't ask people to give me assistance. I just think you spending time with me means a lot. So what I wanted to talk about is The Vanishing, the Cecil Hotel. And if you guys haven't seen this on Netflix, if you have Netflix and you want to watch this series, there's 4 videos. I suggest you go watch this and not listen to what I'm talking about if you don't want to be spoiled. That is what I'm going to be talking about today. This was a very interesting and very eye-opening case that I think really brings into light a lot of things that can happen when web sleuths get a hold of a case and runs with it. It's really sad because I watch a lot of online casework, you know, that people talk about cases, very high profile cases. And, you know, like we're talking like the Jeffrey Dahmer cases, we're talking about, you know, all the high profile cases. You know, we talk about cases of people that we see in the news where the police officers give us information. But this case happened in 2013. And it was about a young girl named Elisa Lamb. And she left her college, and I didn't even write down the college that she was going to, all excited. She did a lot of stuff on Tumblr. And I'm not even sure, but I think I may have followed her Tumblr at one point. Didn't realize it because she was very popular. Or maybe not have been very popular, but I remember, hi, I'm not sure who you are, but hello. Again, guys, if I have to cut this short, it's because my head is starting. I'm having a flare up of a headache. So just know, guys, I am getting another headache. So I have to do this kind of fast. But what I wanted to say is that this case happened in 2013, and what she wanted to do is she wanted to travel. She was going to college. She just turned 19, and she wanted to travel. She was from Canada. And, oh, hey, Collins, I'm sorry, honey. I'm really trying to get the worst headache ever, but I wanted to hurry up and try to get this off my chest. Well, I just finished this, I took some notes over this show I watched, and I wanted to try and get this talked about really quick because I wanted to, you know, just talk about this because it really does go to show what happens when people try to web sleuth. You know, like we hear about things in the news, like you hear about a child go missing, or you hear about people go missing, and like even I do it. I'm not going to say I'm not akin to using my brain and saying, oh, I wonder if this happened or if that happened. And I've even seen where web sleuthing actually worked, where death to cats, you know, the cat thing, you know, there's one thing you don't do on the internet. You don't kill cats. In that case, where web sleuthing worked, people actually came together and web sleuth and found out who that guy was. Hey, baby boy. Um, but you can tell, Collins, I'm getting another headache because my eye droops. You can tell my right eye starts drooping when I don't feel good. So I'm just letting you know ahead of time. I just got back just like seconds ago. But if I feel okay, I'll call you after I get done. Is that okay? If my head's not hurting quite so bad. Well, let me try to get this out. But okay, so what happened in this case was a young girl named Elisa Lamb went to stay at the Cecil Hotel. Now, the Cecil Hotel was downtown LA, which was in the largest block of what they called well, it was the bad part of town. It was the place you didn't want to go. It was where all the people that were homeless and crazy and not doing okay was sent. It was, I forget what they called it, but they had a name for it. And they, that's where everybody was at. And she was from Canada. But she was going to school in the States. And so she didn't know that when she made the arrangements to stay at the, some people called it the Cecil, some people called it the Cecil Hotel. I'm going to call it the Cecil Hotel for my own sanity, because I'm Southern and we say Cecil when we see it spelled this way. So it's Cecil Hotel. Some people call it the Cecil Hotel. But anyway, so when she went, it was named, they had two different, the hotel's basically split down the middle. It had a Airbnb type vibe where you could rent rooms that were kind of bunk bed. They had bunk beds put in so that you only spent $35 a night. That was perfect for someone that was just traveling 3 or 4 days and like staying in 3 or 4 days like for a week and then going back out. And that's what she was doing. Elisa was only going to be there for a few days. Well, Elisa suffered from bipolar. This is what we were told in the beginning of the story, that Lisa suffered from depression. Later, what we found out is that she suffered from yeah, there is a new documentary. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, baby. That's what we're talking about today, is I watched the documentary. So during the time that this actually happened, I think I was going through some ish and I didn't know nothing about this story. I do remember hearing about the actual crime at the time, but I didn't follow the story online. Like I was on YouTube, but I wasn't on YouTube, like on YouTube at the time. Like I was there, but I wasn't like following the channels that were doing the sleuthing, so to speak. Anyway, what happened? One night she's there, next night, poof, she disappears. She doesn't check in with her family like she says she will. She doesn't post on the internet like she did every day. Nothing. Well, there had been a problem where she had started acting a little erratic, and they had to move her out of her room with the other people she was staying with into a room of her own, and she disappears. So the police department takes, and goes through all these hours of video, and they find the last video that they see of her, and it's her in the elevator. Well, push comes to shove, the police department releases this video to the public. Well, John Q. Public, they really didn't want to do this, but they knew the only way that they could maybe get help is if they released this video. And they said that's when ish hit the fan. That's when John Q. Public goes nuts. Okay, that's when the web detectives goes crazy. They started getting phone calls from people all over the world saying, this is what happened, and this is what happened, and this is what happened, and this is what happened. People trying to web sleuth themselves into the investigation. Well, if you watch the video and if you watch this documentary, I had my own suspicions going through the beginning of the documentary. You have your own, like everybody has a little bit of sleuth in them. Everybody does. We all have. If you have any kind of brains in your head, if you are a criminal minded person, not criminally minded, but a person that likes, crime stories, and somebody that watches crime stories, you have this, you see a path and you see another path that could go, or you see a path that it could go, and you do see several different paths it can take. And so I had a place where my mind was going, I had another place my mind was going, I had another place, you see the sights of where it could go. Well, okay, so they said, well, maybe somebody was there with her. Maybe there was somebody, standing outside. Maybe there was somebody following her. Maybe, all these different things. Well, push comes to shove. The case they bring in dogs. Okay, they bring in the sniffing dogs. They tear this hotel apart. Well, the next day, after they bring in body sniffing dogs, they brought in a dog. They brought in several dogs to sniff out her body. And they brought in this scent dog, and the dog hits on a fire escape window. And that's it. And then they take a dog to the roof. Well, the dog on the roof didn't hit on her scent at all, which I thought was interesting. But the dog hit on her scent at the fire escape, which I thought was interesting. So I was like, okay, so the scent stopped at the fire escape window and stops there. So did somebody push her out the fire escape? Did somebody push her into a dumpster below the fire escape? That was a thought. And if she didn't climb to the roof, because obviously if they could sniff her to a certain point, of course they wouldn't find her on the roof if they couldn't find her scent on the roof. So, the next day they were going to start at it again. Well, the next day, somebody started shooting at LP, the Los Angeles Police Department, and they had to take cops off the case and put them on to that. So an LAPD officer, prior officer, started taking out LAPD officers. So they had to take policemen off the unit and put them on that case. So there were only 4 police officers down from 14. So they had to drastically bring the unit down. Well, they decided that they would go back to the hotel and they would relook at the video. That's when they started looking at the video. That's when they found the video of her. They started 20 hours of video work at that point, and that's when they found the video. Well, they started running their investigation on, what they found in the video led to the bookstore. Well, the bookstore, that didn't pan out. So for a little while, they were running on nothing. And then at one point, a couple from overseas had decided to rent at the Cecil Hotel. And this is where the story takes a turn. The story had pretty much hit a dead end. And the policemen that were working the case, they're kind of like running I forget how far into the case it was. I think it was like 3 weeks at this point, or it could have been less. They were still working the case. They were still working on it. The hotel, this young couple had come in, and they'd been there for, like 2 or 3 or 4 days. I forget how long they'd been there. They had rented at the Airbnb, Airbnb. I forget what the name of it was. I didn't write that down. I took notes as best I can, but because my head was hurting, I was just kind of trying to remember what was in the video. But like I said, you guys need to watch this. You really do. It's really interesting. They got up that one morning, and a lot of the tenants started noticing water pressure was messed up. And that morning they noticed that the water was brown, and that when they brushed their teeth and drank it, the water tasted funny. So they called up the desk, and the lady that ran the hotel, she called maintenance and said, listen, something's wrong with the water. So he went up, she listened to it, he listened to it, and they looked at the water and said, oh, y'all need to go check the water. So the maintenance guy goes up to the roof, and when he gets up on the water tower, and there's 4 big, huge water tower bins, he climbs up on the thing, and when he looks down into it, there he finds a body of a female. They have found Elisa Lam in the water tower. And the rub is that they show him closing the lid on the water tower. Okay, they show him opening the water tower lid and closing the water tower lid. So what the police officer in the case does, the liaison officer tells the reporter is that the lid on the tower was closed. Now, think about it for a minute, guys. The lid on this tower was not a lid like with a hinge. It was a 20-pound lid. She was like 110 pounds, maybe soaking wet. There's no way she could have opened that lid, set it off, and then shut the lid, because the water level in the water tower would not have been as such where she could have been down in the water and gotten the lid up and closed it back. You know, it was a 20-pound lid. So all the web sleuths like myself are screaming, wait a minute, because you know the first thing in your brain is, something's not right here. There's no way she got into the water by herself and then shut the lid. Beep, 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 beep. Something's totally not right here. It's murder. First thing that hits your brain, it's murder. But you still have, wait a minute, she was acting erratic. So obviously they look at what else was going on. You know, were there drugs? Was, you know, what was going on in her life? So they get her body out. They send it to autopsy. Hold on. So the thing is, while this is going on, you know, the guy's doing the autopsy on the body. The medical examiner does his autopsy. It takes 4 months for him to get all the blood work and everything back on the autopsy. His autopsy finds 0, like as far as the body goes. He did a complete head to toe autopsy. He found no damage to her body, no bruising to her body, no nothing. No rape. There was a rape kit done. Nobody, no damage done to her orifices. No nothing. No, there was no semen. No, no. Oh no, wait. Am I bugging out here again? Okay. So there was no foreign matter found inside or outside her body. She was found in the water. You know, she'd been in the water for 3 or 4 weeks at this point, about a month. So she had already started to decompose. So there was, you know, usually in the water, you lose, you know, any kind of outside matter that you would find if there was anything, you know, prints or anything on the body. So you would lose anything like that. But there's blood work. Okay. So he does blood work. I've got notes on the blood work. Hold on. Okay. So she had been to the doctor before she left, and she had been diagnosed with bipolar and depression. She was taking medications for drugs that she was on. She was on a mood stabilizer. She was on bipolar medication and depression medication. She was taking venlafaxine, and she was basically taking Wellbutrin and Effexor and 2 other drugs. Now, I've taken Wellbutrin. Y'all know what Wellbutrin did for me. Wellbutrin made me hear voices. But she put in her notes, you know, in her daily vlog, or, well, for her, it was like a diary on Tumblr, that her medication seemed to be working, but there were days that she had struggled with her bipolar. The Effexor, you know, she'd been on, she didn't really say that she'd had a problem with. But what was interesting, they found no other drugs in her system, but she had not been taking her medication. So, however, another thing the web sleuths got on top of is that there was a man by the name of Morbid. Somebody had found a video that he had been staying at the Cecil Hotel. That he had posted a video that he'd been staying at the Cecil Hotel while Elisa, you know, stayed at the Cecil Hotel. And shortly after Elisa died, there was a video that came out about a girl, and he did very dark metal music. I think it was referred to as black metal. And I'm not saying that it wasn't dark metal that they called it. It may have been called something else, but I think they referred to it as black metal music or black death metal. Don't come for me. I may have misunderstood it, but he is Hispanic, and so the translation may have been off. So it was death metal. Let's put it that way. We'll use death metal. And so he said that this video was very graphic, and I will tell you, his music was very graphic. He talked about death. He talked about eating things. I will not discuss that right now because it is very gory, but he talked about it, and everybody, all the web sleuths came for him to the point that Morbid tried to commit suicide. Now, I don't agree with his type of music. I don't think that his type of music needs to even be out there because I think it is nasty as all get out. I mean, to tell you, this guy talks about killing people and eating them. Get a picture of Jeffrey Dahmer and the Black Dahlia. Or was it Jeffrey Dahmer or was it Marilyn Manson? It was either Manson or Dahmer, one of them, on his wall behind him and the Black Dahlia. That is just beyond sick. I mean, but he tried to kill himself because everybody came for his neck. And he says to this day he cannot write music anymore. I said, there's a plus that came out of this. And I hate to say that, but that man's music was so vile, guys. I mean, the lyrics. Now, the music itself, like I mean, I like metal music. Believe it or not, I actually like metal music. I didn't care for his lyrics. His lyrics sucked. They were horrendous. When I say horrendous, they talked about killing people and eating them. That's all I got to say. Anyway, come to find out, right before she went missing, Elisa went downstairs. She'd been leaving notes on people's beds saying, you need to leave. Like, you need to check out. You need to leave. She'd been knocking. Like, people would knock on her door and she wouldn't even answer the door. She would like just ignore them. And then she went downstairs into the lobby. And in the only way that the lady that ran the hotel could describe it, she threw her hands up and said, I'm crazy, but half of LA is crazy too. Or she said, it's okay because half of LA or this part. Somehow she said, but LA is crazy too. That was a great place to stop. Am I still connected, guys? Hello, is anybody here? Am I still here? Can somebody say yes or no? I don't know if anybody's even in here. Anyway, I'm going to keep going. So, let me see what my notes say. Hey, John. Okay, so I'm still here. Okay. um, okay, so there was a psychologist or a sociologist, or she was a doctor. She said that not only did Elisa, okay, Collins, not only did Elisa suffer from bipolar, but she suffered from bipolar 1, which is the worst type of bipolar that you could suffer from. And that she thinks that when she stopped her, I know it is, baby. I can see your name. I can see it, Collins. Not only did she suffer from the worst type, but when she stopped taking her medication, that she probably saw and heard things that was really bad. And so the elevator video was probably Elisa, because a lot of people thought that they saw someone there at the hotel, like in the corner. Elisa actually hit the door stop button to hold the door, and so she was kind of gesturing. Hey, Tommy. Um, she was gesturing as if she was talking to someone. And so basically what it boiled down to is the police department, people had actually submitted to get the files from the police department. You can actually do that. However, the police department would not give up the file, because it was still an ongoing, investigation. Well, the reason being there were things in the file that they had not released to the public. Obviously, it was still an ongoing investigation that they didn't want people to know about because, the investigation wasn't finished. It's, they don't want to release anything until the investigation is done. In case things don't turn out the way that they think they're going to, they have to keep things private. Now, because there is the Sunshine Law, there are certain things that the public have rights to. Like, I can go up to I can go up to the city right now and ask for a complete list of how much every officer makes. That does not entitle me to every officer's name and address, but they do have to give me the amount of money that every officer makes on the force. Every single one of them. I can ask for a file. That does not mean I'm going to get it. Now, if they're old files that have been solved, then they may give it to me. Of course, I may have to pay for printing costs and all that kind of stuff, but it depends on what they are, what it's about, what's it in reference to. There's a lot of list of things about why you would want a file. Anyway, before a lot of this information was released, everybody was all up in arms about why certain things weren't done. Basically, the public had no idea that Elisa had been put into the hospital because she had already had an episode. She had been put into a hospital. She'd been hospitalized before for being unstable. Basically, what they ruled it is accidental death by bipolar because she didn't take her medication. Now, I still fought with this because I'm like, wait a minute, how could she die by not taking her medication and have bipolar? But when I found out that she'd been hospitalized because she had she had went not psychotic, but she'd had a break, an emotional break or a psychotic break. She had been already put in the hospital once having a psychotic break because she has bipolar 1. Then I understood that this could happen again, and that at that point she might have been seeing and having auditory and visual hallucinations. And when she went away from the elevator and I'm thinking now that when the dog sniffed her and stopped at that window that went up to the roof, that's where she went. She climbed the ladder to go to the roof to get away from whatever she was running from, in her hallucinatory state. Now, why she would run into, the water tower, I would have thought she could have hid like on a ladder in the water tower between the water towers. But in her mind, maybe she thought they're still coming for me. I'm going to have to hide in the water tower. She climbed in and then couldn't get out. And so my brain still couldn't resolve itself with, wait a minute though. That had okay. How is the hotel not responsible? Because they knew that she was crazy. I mean, they didn't even call the police. They didn't let anybody know that she was having this break. They knew that something was wrong. The police department was horrified. The detective that was in the lead in the case, he said, I was right there. They didn't go to the water towers because he said, we were right there. He said, I didn't check the water towers. He said, that's the one thing I didn't check. And this is the second time that the police have been right there and lost the person and didn't check the one place where the person was that I've seen. And it's just like they live with that guilt for the rest of their life. And it's really sad. It's sad because they live with that pain, knowing that the family could have had closure. But what I really want to touch on too is that, Morbid, even though his music was sad, Morbid wasn't even there at the same time that Elise was at the Cecil. Morbid was at the Cecil a year earlier. So the web sleuths threatened this man's life, called him a murderer. They had him tagged a murderer online for a solid year or more, and the man wasn't even there. The police in Mexico showed up at his house wanting to know if he had practiced animal sacrifices. And, showed up and wanted to know why he was doing this and why he was doing that. He said, I wasn't even there. Like, he had documents from his recording agency where he was in the recording studio on the day that she went missing. There was no way he could be in both places at once. That's why he tried to commit suicide, because there's no way he could have been there. And people almost still to the day was trying to say he murdered the girl. And if someone had tried to murder her, they would have had to have carried her body up a ladder straight up, or walked in a door with the guard's help, because there's an alarm on the door that goes to the roof. So a guard would have had to have been on it, or a guard would have had to have done it. Then he would have had to carry her body up a ladder and put her into the water tower. So, but and there was nothing wrong with her body. There were no bruising. There was nothing. There was nothing wrong with her body, period. And then, like everybody, the web sleuths were saying, it was a cover up. This was wrong. That was wrong. The guy that did the autopsy, he's like, and I know this for a fact. I worked in medicine. Medical forms are very, very, very picky. The government is very picky with medical forms. If you make a mistake on a medical form, and Tommy, you know this, if you make a mistake on a medical form, you have to X it out, circle it, write your initials and the date. That's how you correct a mistake on your medical form. And he did that. And everybody swore that he changed it because somebody came to him and said, you have to change the cause of death. And he said, no, that's not what happened. If you look at the form, and he zoomed in on the form, the form's on the same date. He made a mistake in putting that he thought the death was, he had put the death was, he couldn't find, there was a non-conclusive death. It basically would have said it was a murder. And so it was marked inconclusive and accidental, but he marked out inconclusive and checked accidental, and then put bipolar, because she didn't take her meds. So, as much as I didn't like his music, Morbid didn't deserve what he got from everybody. It's sad that this young girl lost her life at 19. But it goes to show that even though people have good intentions, when, like we want to be web sleuths, I love a good mystery. I love being able to play along on, I mean, not play along because it's not fun. It's not, this is not my job. But I would love to be a detective. I would love to help out. I would love to be able to go and work a case with somebody to, work side by side and be able to find who's, done a murder. I would want to be able to work a case, to be able to help somebody work a case. If I could help save a life, then that would be great. Help bring somebody home, I'm all for that. You know, I want to help people bring people home, and people online have done that. That's why we have Amber Alerts. That's why we have the technology we have today to bring babies home. And that is a vanishing. I mean, I looked up and I saw Vanishing. That is why we have the Amber Alert system today. And it does amazing things, but in these situations, it's so sad. And I will tell you that Elisa's family sued the Cecil for wrongful death because they didn't have locks on the water tower, and the hotel did nothing to help her. And the actual court sided with the hotel and said that she was an adult. And the hotel said, we called the police, and because it was in such a bad part of town, the hotel manager said half the time they wouldn't even show up. She said, if I had called 911, they wouldn't have done anything. Half the time, they didn't even show up. There have been 80 deaths in the I think 5 years she said she worked there, or 8 years she worked there. There have been 80 deaths at the hotel. So she said, if I had even called 911, they probably wouldn't have even answered the phone because half the time they didn't answer the call. So, what are your guys' takes? I mean, like, how do you feel about the parents suing the hotel? How do you feel about knowing that this young girl dropped herself into a water tower and vanished and wasn't found for a month? Even though the dog hit on the window there, it's just horrendous. It's just horrendous. And something else that bothers me, they had the helicopter out shining a light down onto the roof that night. How did the helicopter pilot not see her body down in the water on that tower? Because the roof, that tower, maybe the tower window, the water tower window was too small, because she was completely naked and she was floating on top of the water. She was probably down in the water at that point and couldn't be seen at that point. The doctor that did the autopsy said that she was probably removing her clothing because she was drowning. She was being pulled down, and said that she probably died of hypothermia, or she just eventually drowned. I'm thinking, why would you eventually drown? If you can float, you wouldn't drown, I wouldn't think. And if the window was open, you might die of hypothermia maybe, but I wouldn't think drowning if you can float. So I don't know. There was no other reason for her to die other than drowning. And so that's the end to the story. She was found. It was an accidental death due to, well, they said it was accidental death due to her bipolar. And it wasn't a suicide but she had said she wanted to commit suicide before, but they considered it an accident because of her state of mind, I guess. But she technically couldn't make the decision on her own. So I'm hoping deep down that, she didn't commit suicide. So that's my take. I'm really, it was a really sad story. It's really sad. Oh, Skid Row. That's where it was located. It's located on Skid Row, and it's a horrendously large spot downtown LA. And it was crazy to see how large a place Skid Row was. I don't know if Skid Row's still there. I know the Cecil has been at the time been repurchased, and they're using it for split. They're using it for half of it's low income housing, the other half is going to be rentable income. And so, the guy that owns it now, or the people that own it now, want to turn the roof into a bar and have a rooftop pool. So, I don't know. I wish them all the best and all that they do. I just think it's really sad that, I think this goes to show you that people today, I mean, I myself, I look at other people and I think, what can I do to help other people? And I think we've become such a selfish society. And I'm not saying this, I'm saying this as somebody that I try to be compassionate. And I mean that. I really do try to be compassionate, and I try to look out for other people. And I don't know why we can't do that for others. People today are set in, why am I froze again? Wanting to not help others, that we're so non-compassionate anymore. Would it have been so bad for that, owner of that, I mean, the manager, to look at her and go, do you need some help? Is there something I can do to help you? Would it have been so bad for her to say that to her? I don't know, guys. But those are my thoughts. I just thought I would share this with you guys. I'm going to go now because this is so blurry now. But I love you all. Thank you for spending time with me today. That's my take, my words on The Vanishing, the story on Netflix. If you guys like this story, you want to hear anything else, leave a comment on whatever social media you saw this on. Let me know your thoughts. I'm going to get better at this. I know I'm not too great at this, but I will get better at this, guys. I promise. I love you all. Share the love I share with you with someone else. And I will talk to you guys again soon. Smile at somebody. You never know if it might change somebody's entire day. Love you guys. Bye-bye.